Hello, and welcome to the You're a Tourist podcast, where we get serious and share a laugh or two about all the good, the bad, and the ugly parts of tourism, the sometimes ridiculous parts of tourism that you may or may never have even thought about. By the end, we'll give you some small changes that you can make as a tourist to help you become a better tourist. I'm your host, Katie Dudley, and today we're going to be taking a deep dive into a place where tourism is king. We are looking at Charleston, South Carolina. Joining me for this topic today is an organizer, a media entrepreneur, and special advisor to the mayor of Charleston, William Cogswell. Please welcome to the show, Tamika Gadsden. Hey, Mika.
Hello. Hey, how's it
Oh,
going?
good. I'm excited to talk about Charleston. I wore my shovels and rope shirt today,
I saw that.
repping
I saw that.
Charleston. I don't know. I was like that or Clemson, and I was like, I don't think I want to wear the Clemson shirt today.
No.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, well, before we jump into our topic of Charleston and tourism, we are going to do a fun game that I like to play with all of my guests called Tourists in the News. And so, yeah, just kind of loosen everybody up, remind everybody what we're talking about here, the type of people we're talking about with tourists. Um, the rules of the game are simple. I am going to read a headline. And for this particular game, you are going to tell me, what did the drunk tourist do? I felt
Okay.
like this was a good one for Charleston, maybe. Uh, yeah, so I'm going to read a headline and you're going to say what the drunk tourist did. You can have up to 3 questions to clarify before you make your guess. All right.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I am as ready as I can be.
Okay, here we go. Headline number 1. Yellowstone tourist facing federal charges after allegedly trying to what?
Does it have anything to do with celebrating an occasion?
No.
Does it have anything to do with picnic baskets?
No.
Okay, my last question. Are hot springs involved? I don't even know if they
Yes,
have hot
hot
springs.
springs
Oh.
are involved.
Okay. I'm just gonna say skinny dip in hot springs. I don't
All
know.
right, well, that was close. And the fact is we don't know whether the person had clothes on or not. But yes, the answer is enter hot springs while drunk.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a bad mix.
that
Yeah.
is.
Oh, I was
Yeah,
close.
hot springs.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know which parks have springs, and I feel so ignorant talking to you by admitting that. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I was good. That was good.
Yeah,
That's
that's
a good
good.
attempt.
See,
Okay.
we're getting warmed up here. We're all right. So yeah, I'll tell you. The article says that 49-year-old Jason Wicks of Hillman, Michigan, was arraigned earlier this week on federal criminal charges of off-trail trespassing in a Yellowstone thermal area and being under the influence to the degree he was a danger to himself or others. Get this. Wicks pleaded not guilty to the counts and has been released as he awaits trial. An investigation into the
Oh,
incident is still underway and trial is yet to be set. In the meantime, as part of the conditions of his release, the traveler is banned from entering Yellowstone and Grand Teton parks until the case is resolved. So there you go,
wow.
folks. There you go. Do not jump into the hot springs, no matter how
No.
enticing they look. Um,
What? Wait. What did they call it? An off? It. What? What kind of thermal area was
it
it?
was an off he was off-trail trespassing in a Yellowstone thermal area.
Thermal area,
Yeah.
child. Stay away. Okay.
Exactly.
Got
That's it. That's out there,
it.
folks. We make trails for a reason. Stay on the trail. Don't think you're better than the trails. That's just my PSA. Okay. Headline number 2. Okay. We got this one. This one's getting a little closer uh, to you.
Okay. Okay.
Tourist Thomas Storch did what to $2,000 worth of alcohol at Jason Aldean's bar in downtown Nashville.
What?
He did something to $2,000 worth of alcohol in downtown Nashville.
All right, first question. Are mini bottles involved?
No. Maybe in the pre-party.
Okay, $2,000. Ooh, are bridesmaids involved?
Oh, that's a good question. Once again, we're in Nashville, so I'm sure at some point in the night. But no, not for this
Maybe.
story.
Okay. Okay. See, Okay. Um. Oh boy, $2,000. Oh, were college students somehow involved, or fraternities?
It's a possibility. It's not a main
Okay.
portion
Wow.
of it, but he's in the
Okay.
age range.
Okay. Oh my God, $2,000. I'm gonna say Jason Aldean. Wow. Um. I am going to say resell it at a country music concert. I don't know.
That's a great guess. That's a great guess. Maybe Mr. Storch would be better off if he had done that. No, he urinated on $2,000
Oh,
worth of alcohol. Yeah.
I wouldn't have guessed that with 1,000 questions. What?
Yes. Tw-
Oh,
tw-
he's a Go ahead.
well, I was just going to explain because I feel like that needs some explanation here. 21-year-old Maryland tourist Thomas Storch was at Jason Aldean's bar just before 11 p.m. on Saturday when he decided to use a walk-in cooler as a restroom. Security staff
Oh.
told police that Storch walked into a beer storage cooler and urinated all over the alcohol stored inside, which was valued at approximately $2,000. The incident was captured on video, which was reviewed by arresting officers.
That is wild. I would have called him somewhat of like a prohibitionist, but he was already drunk,
Yeah.
so that wasn't what motivated him.
No, no. I mean, it's actually, when you do read it, it's actually a little bit scary. I'm like, I don't know. And I had some heavy drinking days in my life, and I could have made a wrong turn and found myself in a cooler.
Yeah. Yeah, that could have been way gnarlier. Yeah, that could have been
Yeah,
horrible.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I guess we're okay. So the last one, oh, this one's a good one. Okay, the last headline. Drunk tourist in the Alps did what? Okay, again, so he was drunk. Drunk tourist in the Alps did what instead of returning to the hotel? It's
In the
wide open.
Alps. Yeah, this sounds very. This is the toughest one. All right, I'm okay. So yeah, let me ask another set of ridiculous clarifying questions. Okay, was chocolate anywhere involved?
No.
I'm just thinking of Swiss chocolate. I
I
don't
no,
know.
I'm with you.
Look at me.
I was checking the
No.
article. I was like, it could be.
Okay, and instead of going back to the hotel,
Hmm.
um, I'm just gonna guess. I'm
Okay.
not even gonna. I'm gonna guess. Uh, started yodeling. I don't know.
No. I mean, maybe close because the drunk tourist in the Alps accidentally climbs mountain instead of returning to hotel.
That is okay. Going back to we've all had some nights. We've had some nights with some drinking. That
You
is
know,
crazy to
you just put
me.
one
Oh my
foot in front of
goodness.
the other and hope that you end up home.
Absolutely. That is wild.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that one.
So yeah, an Estonian tourist in the Alps had a lucky escape actually at the weekend when he got drunk and climbed a mountain instead of returning to his hotel. Uh, Wearing shoes rather than skis, he set off toward his hotel on a snowy street, but he took the wrong one and ended up on a ski run headed up the mountainside. At some
Oh
point
my
between
goodness.
2 a.m. and 3 a.m., still climbing, he noticed a chalet on the horizon and there was a bar. It's called the Igloo Bar and Restaurant. And so we broke into the restaurant and like found a comfy place to stay. And then they said he even had 3 bottles of water next to him. So he was being a responsible drunk, right? No hangover
Okay,
in the
yeah, yeah.
morning.
There you go.
And then finally a search party found him up there. And then the owner of the restaurant said everything went well for him. He said, "It's okay. It's not that cold." So, you know,
Okay.
they just
All
take it
right.
easy
Well,
over there. Didn't care that he had broke
oh,
in, didn't. All right.
yeah,
I
okay.
don't know.
Thank God. Yeah, thank God for the people who intervened or responded to all three. Like, and people, these weren't like really like sad outcomes,
Right.
for the most part.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
I know you don't. I know you're not aiming for that
like
a
I was like,
Dateline
I'm gonna
outcome.
check and make sure that's not true. I've had an episode or two where somebody lost a limb and things. That's okay.
Okay. Okay.
But yes, I
Oh
think that
boy.
I think the drunk tourist game, like I said, is appropriate when we're going to dive into Charleston here. Not necessarily because of just the drunkenness, but that's really because it happens. The drunkenness part happens in most tourism destinations. Um, but it's more so of these are the crazy things that just happen in people's backyards. What people forget about is in these tourism destinations, people live, work, try and raise families, all of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Amongst people who are out there kind of only thinking about themselves, just trying to have a good time, things like that. Which we'll
Yeah.
dive into a little bit more when we talk about things like short term rentals and things like that. Um,
Ooh.
yeah.
Ooh.
So
Mm-hmm.
to kick off the topic, Mika, I'm just going to let you give you the floor for a bit. Tell us a little bit about how long you've lived in Charleston. You and I have known each other, oh, probably about, we're getting close to 10 years. Time's fly,
Yeah. Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun, huh?
Yeah.
But yeah, we met in Charleston in politics. So tell us a little bit about that, how you found yourself in Charleston, um, and kind of the work you've been doing over the past several years.
Yeah, no, ooh, yeah. Now I have to, you know what? For the audience, for the listening audience, I recently ran for office, which we'll probably get to a little bit.
Hmm.
So I actually should have this a very succinct like version of like tell us more about you. But I'm a little rusty. I will say this. What I've told people who are new to me and new to my work, what I tell them is that I'm a come ya Binya hybrid. And if you're from Charleston, if you're any in any way familiar with Gullah culture,
Mm,
Kumyas and Binyas is one way that we distinguish those who are native to Charleston
mm,
from those who arrived to Charleston from other areas. So those are the people that come from far away, transplants. They're referred to as Kumyas, and the Binyas have been here. So that's just a colloquial phrase. But
gotcha.
I describe myself that way because I am the daughter of two Jim Crow refugees. So both my parents left the Jim Crow South. My mother's a native of North Carolina. My
Mm,
father is a native of the Charleston County area. And they met in New Jersey, where I was born and raised. And so my Charleston story does zigzag
mm-hmm,
and is a little bit more complex. Yeah. So being born to two Southerners, like so many other people, is not even just specific to Black and African American folk. You know, I spent a lot of time in my childhood in the South, summers in the South,
mm.
summers in Charleston. My dad is from Wadmalaw Island, which sounds super exotic. Um, but if you know Charleston, you know it's comprised of all these little islands,
Mm,
and all up and down the Gullah Geechee corridor. And so, yeah, I've always had one foot in the South, in North Carolina or South Carolina, and one foot in the North. And
mm-hmm.
being raised by parents who left the South, it really has shaped a lot of who I am. So, long story
Yeah.
short, my parents semi-retired when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I finished high school in Charleston. I graduated from St. Andrews High School in 1999. Go Rocks! Our mascot is a rock. Was a rock.
God.
And then being a Jersey girl who was raised initially in the New York metro area, as soon as I graduated high school, I was out.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, so I left for college, and then I spent 10 years after college. I spent 10 years in Philadelphia, and then returned to Charleston in 2014. And yeah, I think you and I and Phil probably
Yeah.
bumped into each other not too long after that. But yeah, 2014. So yeah, for back 10 years now, 10 another decade here in Charleston. Yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah. Okay. So as you explained, a little bit different. So again, your work, you've already kind of teased out some of your work in politics, but you've done a lot of work as an activist, everything else, and it kind of makes sense um, that you're so passionate about certain parts of Charleston in that sense too. Because again, like you say, a lot of the people that maybe kind of move in and things like that, and a lot of the country really is sold kind of the tourism version of Charleston. But for
Yeah.
those people who live there, and again, like you say, have a deep and rich history there, uh, it's there's a lot that's not told in the tourism version of Charleston, even though tourism has been around almost as long as Charleston has.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah. Charleston's a city that prides itself on its amazing historical story.
Hmm.
But again, anyone just even generally familiar with Charleston's history, you understand that that story is very complicated and it's filled with some very, very low points. But that being said, I get it. I get why people fall in love with this
Hmm.
city. I know what lured me back, and it beyond the familial ties and the ties to my culture, it's beautiful here. It is gorgeous here, and so we understand why we get visitors, but I'm of the mind that when we have company, it's okay to offer a true and real and honest experience. Um, and I think you can do two things at once. I think you
Hmm.
can be honest about your story, and I think a city or a region can be forthright about that,
Yeah.
so that we don't make mistakes that we perhaps made in the past. And I say
Right.
mistakes, and it really honestly is we don't visit the same horrors. I know it's probably a little dramatic, but it's important for us to acknowledge our past so that we don't we don't revisit some of those things that don't make us feel too good. So yeah,
Right.
this city is historically reluctant to embrace that, but I think, thank God, there have been some amazing voices and people who have challenged that, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's better. It's a little bit better.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask of how well, for one, let's just kind of go back a little bit, maybe to the pandemic and how it fared during the pandemic. And there was a lot of changes that happened in a lot of tourism destinations from the pandemic. From that standpoint, there was a lot of things from a social justice standpoint that changed over the pandemic and that were kind of exposed and elevated. So, what was Charleston like, and how do you think things have kind of moved out of that?
Yeah, I don't know if you remember, but you and I had a conversation right as things in Charleston were just like literally shutting down. And so I'm a media entrepreneur and content creator. So I wanted to embed myself in the downtown, the heart of the tourism activity. I wanted to just kind of see the city evolve and become, how it, I wanted to see and document how it would adjust to the COVID-19 crisis. And so
Hmm.
I booked a few nights at a local hotel, and I was able to converse with the staff there. The first night, staff was there just like a typical day in Charleston, and then night two, oh, we don't have continental breakfast. We're gonna have bag lunches or
Yeah, I
bag
remember
breakfasts,
that. Yeah.
and cereal. Then day three, the valet staff, of course, was like furloughed. From what they told me, they were furloughed, and so this was the skeleton crew, operating the hotel. And then I have a friend who is a member of the local police force, and we would take walks, and it was like a ghost town.
Mm.
It was a ghost town, and so it was eerie to see a bustling tourism haven just become just eerily quiet.
Yeah.
But it was, I ain't gonna lie, it was peaceful. It was peaceful. You didn't have to compete with bridesmaids
Oh
on the
God.
curb. Yeah, you didn't have to compete with, long lines to get into a mid-tier bar. um but no, but it was, I don't think Charleston has seen that type of social disruption since, and it's going to sound weird comparison, but Hugo
Oh,
stopped things.
yeah.
And of course I was just a wee lass in New Jersey when that happened. But seeing, I've read, the coverage and seen some of the television coverage. Charleston just was, it was eerie then, and the pandemic was eerie as well. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what right. I guess it was pretty quick into the pandemic too. We have something here that maybe a lot of the listeners have heard of, Catalina Island. And that's a
Mm.
similar thing. I mean, it lives and dies on tourism. And so that's what I was talking to a few people right when that happened. And that's kind of what they were saying, where it was nice and peaceful because, people were born and raised there, and they said, they've never got to experience the island like that. But at the same time, they said things like, we never thought we would miss the crowds and things of like the noise going past your window and all of this. They were kind of like, I'm
Yeah.
ready for it to come back. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure. And that's the thing. I think I don't know how everyone feels,
Mhm.
but I don't mind. Again, we understand why people love this city.
Mhm.
It's just we seek balance. We crave balance.
Yeah.
Those who live here 365, we just want it to be a more balanced experience, so that we're not just making everyone just miserable
Yeah.
during our most popular seasons. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So so the way I'm trying to figure out how I want to ask it. Um Kind of when I don't know why I'm just like talking about the pandemic still, but whatever.
It's
We'll
okay.
start there and
Yeah.
we'll get other places. But yeah, during the pandemic, there was kind of, for people who study tourism, it was kind of a split because, like you said, it was such a worldwide phenomenon that had just never happened before. So for the first time ever, we were like, those of us who are kind of more on the sustainable tourism side, who were already seeing signs that the train was going out of control and we need to stop it, we were like, this is fantastic. We can pause it, we can come back, we can do tourism right at the end of this. And then you had the other school that was like, the businesses, right? And again, the government
Mm,
of the places, because you need it for your
mm,
economy. And it was like, we need to
mm,
open tourism up as fast as we can, and we got to get back to normal, get back to normal. And so we kind of had that fight all through the pandemic. But the longer everybody stayed inside, the more the business side won. And then all
mm,
tourists were just like shot put out of their houses, and they're just like, I don't care about anything. Like,
right.
I'm going to do what I want to do, and I'm going to go where I
Mm,
want to go. So we're seeing that some places came out of the pandemic a little bit where they had made some changes, but some places actually kind of shot out of the pandemic and went back the other direction, almost kind of that disaster capitalism style, things like that.
absolutely.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
what are you seeing in Charleston?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. This is another wild comp, but now I think it's appropriate. I think about what Paris did with its streets and making it more walkable,
Oh yeah.
and so many, they you talk about tourism destination. I think places like Paris got it right. And whereas here in Charleston, what did I see? Yeah, we know that we've had state level leadership, consecutive leaders, so consecutive governors who prioritize, wooing corporations
Mm.
here, for a myriad of reasons. We have very lax labor laws here.
Mhm.
This state does not, not too keen on unions,
Yeah.
to put it mildly.
Yeah.
and not only that, here regionally, you have big commercial powerhouses like Boeing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so you have a lot of business interests tied up into, I guess, the success of a city and the economic success of the city. It's all interwoven.
Mm-hmm.
Our airport here has become remarkably powerful.
Hmm.
And those who lead on the boards of the aviation board and whatnot,
Yeah.
they all have a vested interest in our tourism and our ability to attract people here. And so, yeah, you saw that muscle memory kick in, where
Mm.
the dominant voices were pro business. You saw, even again, from the state level, from the governor's office down, you saw this call to prioritize businesses and help them rebound, and
Mm.
the resistance to shut down. And one thing that became very, very clear, I believe mainstream news outlets, New York Times, CBS News, documented there were moments where Charleston led the world per capita in things like COVID infections.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, New York Times documented that at one point.
Mm.
And then you also saw CBS News document how our bars were not did not shutter their doors
Mm.
down in the heart of our tourism areas, downtown Charleston. And so you saw the values play out.
Yeah.
And you saw where our priorities were. And so yeah, we resisted. I think as a region, we resisted um prioritizing that pause and maybe like recalibration. And
Mm-hmm.
there was this determination to return back to pre-pandemic. But the also social issues complicated that as well,
Yeah.
because amid COVID-19, of course, was unrest that happened all across the globe. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I'm not really that shocked of
Mm-hmm.
the pro business and things. I did see a lot, yeah,
Mm-mm.
during the pandemic. It was South Carolina, Florida, North Carolina, kind of fighting for tourism. So let's kind of put a face on that. Then, for most people, right? It kind of seems like if you're not in it day to day and you're not trying to live in that destination and things like that, especially during the pandemic and then now as we go forward, where they're like, it's not that big of a deal, right? So why don't we? Because for one we've got a lot of narrative out there that the people in the community need tourism to come back. um, and then the other part is, if you don't want to be around it, you don't have to be around it, right? If you're, and so again, that's easy to say from the outside looking in. But when you live in a place that does prioritize tourism, like how does that translate to the people who are living in a destination?
Yeah, no, I think we've seen this play out in the most recent municipal election.
Mm-hmm.
And though I'm here, like to say, I'm here as just Mika Gadsden. I think it's fair and okay to acknowledge that, as someone who did participate as a candidate in the previous mayoral
Mm-hmm.
race, there were a number of candidates, or I would say just a few, who really spoke to the challenges that residents were faced with in terms of the direction that the city was going in.
Yeah.
And I would say that myself and my current boss were of the mind that we can't sacrifice our residents for tourism,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And we can't plan our growth just around the more celebratory, or more convivial, I guess, aspects of Charleston. So
Yeah.
so yeah, I think prioritizing people has become very popular. And
Mm-hmm.
while there are industries and small businesses um that are based here that benefit greatly from tourism,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a way to support them and showcase them and make sure they're well resourced. uh there's
Yeah.
a way to help them, and also make sure that we're not overrun and we're not burdened by the demand. I'll say this again. I hope this is not becoming obnoxious, but in that conversation that you and I had back at the beginning of the pandemic,
Mhm.
um, you mentioned um, you mentioned how like destinations like theme parks like or I think it's Disney or in Orlando,
Mhm.
how those theme parks have like staggered I guess staggered visitation. I don't know
Yeah.
what it's called, but they staggered the guests so
Mhm.
that the experience isn't poor for
Oh, yeah,
everyone.
yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that's we're not doing that. We're not handing out fast passes, but but there has been attention paid to how can we still offer a world class experience, but not at the cost of people who live here.
Yeah.
Yeah, people just really want to be seen and prioritized.
Yeah, exactly. And that, I mean, that's great to hear that that's what Charleston, because I have around here, I know San Diego. I talked to somebody who
Mm.
works for tourism in San Diego, and that's kind of, and this person got a lot of pushback when they kind of first joined the team, but that's what they were saying is, our goal should not be to fill every hotel room every night. Like, we cannot function
Mm-mm.
as a city and like just for the day to day of people getting around, and like we've got to actually manage tourism and not just try and let it take over as much.
Yeah,
So yeah, so
absolutely.
that's good to hear that's what you all are working on um
Yeah,
there in Charleston,
and
and
so
ideally hopefully
yeah.
to get more of the benefits of tourism to more people, because that's kind of what my line about the people coming on TV saying we got to open up tourism uh to help the community, and that's what I talk about in my classes a lot with my students. Is it's just like I would sit there and my blood would boil, because a lot of it would be island destinations or something, and it's just like, and these people's hearts are just bleeding, and it's
Hmm.
hard for me to believe that you really care about the people, because it's the developers that went in and you took all the opportunities
Exactly.
away from
Exactly.
anybody to survive
Exactly.
without tourism. And now it's like, we got to bring tourism back. It's the only thing that can save
No,
us.
absolutely. No, it makes it exactly like one thing too, when they say bring back, yeah, help the businesses that thrive from tourism, they often talk about one area. It's just
Mm-hmm.
one, and so they don't even democratize those opportunities in a way that where so if you come to Charleston, y'all, downtown is gonna is probably going to be the place where people tell you to visit or stay. But we've got beautiful parks and places on James Island, on
Mm-hmm.
Johns Island, in West Ashley, Daniel Island, which is a whole nother thing. But I mean, it also has experiences. I'm sure I'm less familiar with Daniel Island, but
Mm-hmm.
the point is, like, there is so much to enjoy, but we always push people to a specific region.
Yeah.
And why I'm bringing that up is because we're pushing people to a specific region, to a specific subset of entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
to a specific type of experience, versus having them versus offering folks a little bit more of a diverse experience.
Yeah.
And that kind of, it ties back to my initial comment about the stories we tell here in Charleston.
Yeah.
I believe that we tell more of these rich stories where that in and of itself will kind of shape people's experiences when they visit us for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's something we just have not really invested in yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly, that's a great point for the listeners at home. So kind of how it works on whether we can call it a convention and visitors bureau, a CVB, a destination management organization, a DMO, whatever. But those are the organizations behind when you're searching at a destination of visit Charleston, visit Austin, visit, they all, most of them have visit in the name, and you're
Yeah.
going and looking at where to go in that city. So the way that those organizations are actually funded is they're funded by membership. of businesses. And so it's one of those, if you pay enough of a membership, then we'll promote you. So we know who gets promoted whenever visitors are looking at a destination. It's the people, the big companies who can afford it. A lot of times the mom and pops can't compete with them. They definitely can't get on the first page of the website.
No.
So it makes it even more clear too, now that I'm out here in California. Um, because I mean, I was from Illinois and I moved around a lot of places kind of in the East. So it's just, Charleston, those
Mm-hmm.
places. The people out here in California know absolutely nothing about the South, about Charleston, and I shouldn't say that. That's generalizing a lot.
No, but I get what you're
Yeah.
saying, though. Yeah,
So they're
yeah,
not,
it's a big generalization, but yeah.
yeah, so it's not for the tourism promoters that will say, well, that's okay. We do have these other things and people can find them. If people don't know anything about it, they're not going to find them when they go to Charleston, kind of like what you're saying, of where they all just kind of get funneled into one area.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah.
definitely. And what Charleston has topped, what is it, Condé Nast's top
Yeah.
cities in the world for 10 years,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, that what that tells me is that there is an investment in making sure that um that we maintain a reputation,
Mm-hmm.
and that reputation is built on, again, a very complicated story. Look, this is also very well known, and I think that even the current leadership would admit this. Charleston has packaged and sold a very specific brand of Southern experience.
Mm-hmm.
To this day, you can still on those visitors bureau websites, you can start your search for a destination wedding, and it's gonna tell you to look into these plantations here.
Mm-hmm.
We have a number of plantations, and I prefer to refer to them as labor camps.
Okay.
I just wanted to use a more commonly known phrase first, but
Mm-hmm.
these labor camps are huge wedding destinations.
Yeah.
The Spanish moss, the live oaks. But if people understood what transpired on these labor camps, that these are not gardens, that these are
Right.
not just beautiful outdoor spaces, and how they've been maintained in a way to corral and cap it's a way for folks to maintain wealth over
Mm.
generations. So it's literally built by and survives on inequity. And it really, I think if people knew what life was like for the enslaved populations who made those places beautiful, I think people would think twice about having a wedding there. but
Yeah.
but that's what's sold, that's what's packaged and sold. And A lot of the vestiges of Charleston's hand in the enslaving of Africans, a lot of the vestiges of that practice have become very, very, like, they're ingrained in the tourist experience. It's almost like
Yeah.
I'm like working on, like, I don't know if it's a graphic novel, I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be like
Mm-hmm.
a dark humor about how we take something as gruesome as enslavement
Mm-hmm.
and just make it marketable.
Oh yeah.
And it's just from the labor camps being sold as wedding venues
Mm.
to there's one hotel downtown called the Vendu, which literally translates into auction. And
Oh,
what auctions, yeah,
right.
what auction took place in that area? Chattel slavery auctions, right?
Yeah.
And but it, and like, so people don't, Vendu is not just this cool French word. No, it literally refers to a
Right.
practice that took place. The Citadel, one of the original buildings from the original Citadel's campus is downtown Charleston, on near Marion Square.
Mm.
That's now an Embassy Suites. Like, and if you know,
Yeah.
if you research, it's not funny, but
Right.
it's absurd.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, the original Citadel, was built literally to to restrict the movement of free Black people in Charleston, in fear of some sort of insurrection. From both free and not so free Black folks. So
Yeah.
um, that's what Charleston does. It likes to whitewash a lot of its stories so it can repackage it into something else. But I think a lot of people have pushed back at that practice, and we're seeing those stories that need to be told be told.
Yeah. And that's fantastic. And that's what it's like on two sides of that. When I talk about kind of my students out here who don't know a lot, when you talk about the weddings, that's what I will say to my students of just like, yeah, when we talk about, the good, the bad, and the ugly of tourism. And that's what I was like, in the South, lots of little girls grow up wanting to have their weddings there. And they're just like, absolutely not. There's no way. And I was like, well, it makes me feel good that your immediate reaction is that is ridiculous and despicable, but also it's again, like you say, it's a little bit alarming that one side of the country doesn't know that that's still what people are
Right,
doing and
right.
how it's being framed there. It's also
Yeah,
hard to,
yeah,
when you talk about that in the history of tourism and the marketing of it in that way and packaging of it, it also kind of makes it harder to make the argument that tourism is for everyone in Charleston. Because if you're packaging certain stories in that way, there's inevitably going to be groups of tourists who don't want to hear that version of the story. And I guess that's on
yeah.
both sides of the coin. Because there's been a lot of pushback
Oh yeah,
on
yeah,
trying to, I know that there are people trying to push for some of the labor camps, as you call
yeah.
it, to actually the tours to tell the true stories and not just the one side of the story. And I remember there was a lot of pushback from certain groups of tourists saying they didn't feel the need to be told, to be lectured on
Mm.
tourism. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, yeah. Most notably, so for those who are unfamiliar, there are a number of labor camps that are uh, prime destinations that are marketed as such. But there is one here in Charleston that distinguishes itself, and that's the
Yeah.
McLeod Plantation, but McLeod Labor Camp. That one is a county park, and I think that's part of the reason why it tells a different story.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's more of a classroom than anything else,
Mm.
and what McLeod does that the other labor camps are slowly trying to get to, which is the McLeod centers the Black experience.
Mm.
And so, yeah, a few years ago, national news was made because of all of the comments
Yes, that
that were
yes.
left. The comments that were left either like somewhere publicly accessible. I don't know if it was on Facebook or on the visit. I don't know if it was on the website, but comments were left by hordes of visitors who felt quote unquote bad and felt like they were being told that you could tell it was almost like waking up a sleepwalker. They were so like they were
Uh,
like just shaken into like understanding like no, yeah, these plantations, these labor camps were not not what you saw in Gone with the Wind or not what you saw in whatever that piece of fiction was. These were tough places. And what really disturbs me, Katie, is how, because okay, when you go to McLeod, they literally start where the laborers would work and live.
okay.
And that's what really bothered people, was that you started not at the front of the house, not on the grand porch. Started where where the dairy products were made. Start
Mm.
where the small enslaved children would turn bricks that were to be dried in the sunlight, and you could still see their fingerprints. You started there, and you saw how backbreaking
Mm.
the work was, and that's what really bothers people. And I actually, I've visited and just kind of blended in with tourists, and
Mm-hmm.
you would hear questions like, well, there were good masters,
Oh
right?
gosh.
And,
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't like, I'm not one of those people that just jump on a person like that. Like,
Right.
obviously they have never been taught this history
Mm-hmm.
to the point where they're trying to condition in their brain, they're trying to negotiate, well, it couldn't have been all bad. They could not even fathom that
Yeah.
being in the mere act of being in bondage is completely atrocious and incomprehensible.
Yeah.
But those were the takeaways, was, oh, why are we being confronted with this history? I came for a good story. I'm like, that's the problem. The truth is definitely going to challenge those narratives
Yeah.
that other people have been sold. So McLeod is the one place I tell people to visit, because it centers the Black experience and the Black history, and it concludes its tour in the house, in the
Mm.
quote unquote big house. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I mean, I like what you say about that because it is true of you do have to an extent meet people where they are, because it is like some people, again, in certain parts of the South, like you say, it that does rock everything that they've ever been taught, and so you can't
Mm-hmm.
expect them to just in 1 second turn and get it. But
Mm-mm.
hopefully
Mm-mm.
maybe they'll even say a few stupid things along the way, but at least when they go back home, maybe they're starting to think about things in a different way, and stuff
Yeah.
like that, which I think it's interesting, and that kind of stands out because I mean, I don't hate tourists. Tourists are an easy, low hanging fruit that everybody makes fun of. And
Exactly.
that's why I call this podcast, You're a Tourist, because again, you can call yourself whatever you want, but at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, you are a tourist. You're a visitor in some other place. And
Yeah.
so the thing that gives tourists a bad name are the people who, don't respect the place. They're not willing to actually hear it, stuff like
Yeah.
that. So that's it. It makes me think too, because the term that I actually hate that people use is, I like authentic experiences. I'm not a tourist. I travel authentically. And it's like, I'm just looking at you and you using that word. I guarantee it's not authentic. Um, but it's just,
Right.
yeah, just the nature of it. Because
Yeah.
the main part of that idea is, just like we talk about, there's all kinds of issues that happen within a tourism destination. As a tourist, you always get to leave. You always get to go home.
There you
So you're
go.
never
Right.
waking up in an authentic experience in that destination.
Mm-mm.
But again,
Mm-mm.
what you're talking about is that's a story that's authentic to what happened. And people are like, well, that's not the authenticity I wanted.
Right. Exactly that. And it's just, it's really, yeah, if people really want an authentic Charleston experience, I would suggest they come and work here. Just work in the food service, work in, F&B, whatever, like for a week or two. That'll be an authentic experience during festival season at that. Yeah, and it's just, I don't know what it is. I guess I've always been, even as a kid, I just want to know how things work. I'm
Hmm.
not saying I used to break things open, but I always used to like be very curious about how things work.
Mm.
How does that light bright work? How does that how does that glowworm work? I'm just thinking about my childhood. But yeah, I've always been curious. And so like when you find out that like, oh, Teddy Ruxpin will say anything, if you put any tape in his back, he'll say anything.
I
Like
never figured that
when
out.
you it's like if you put a rap tape in his back, he'll start spitting bars, like just telling fun stories. But like it is like it's okay. Like I'm like, oh, I just like knowing everything, and then I can negotiate what parts of that I want to engage with. Look,
Hmm.
this is what I don't get about people who are super resistant to a more honest portrayal or storytelling from Charleston.
Hmm.
What I don't get is that you talk about you feel bad. I am a descendant of enslaved people
Yeah.
who loves nature, who loves parks, who loves the beach. These are places that are very complicated for me. My dad is in his mid 80s. He has never been to Folly Beach because he
Uh,
never was allowed to develop a relationship with that beach
mm,
because of Jim Crow segregation.
yeah.
And like, so you think I like to think about that when I'm frolicking with my friends?
Right.
No, and the thing about it, for those who are not, for those who feel this history is just too cumbersome and just too difficult, just imagine people, indigenous folks and Gullah folk, who've had a lot of their stories and their landmarks completely erased from the historical landscape.
Yeah.
And we still find joy, we still create community, we
Hmm.
still enjoy hanging out in Charleston. And it's like, we're inviting you to, contain the multitudes that we do as well.
Right.
And I think, it's not about making anyone feel bad. It's about, hey, this is what happened. Okay, this is where we are now. Now,
Yeah.
how do we travel this road together? As people who love Charleston, that's all it is
Right.
an invitation to see our full selves, to see our full, honest truth.
Yeah.
And it's not about making anyone feel bad. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I've had a guest on a different show earlier, and she phrased it in a way. We were talking about rafting in this
Oh,
situation, but still, what she phrased to tourists I thought was great is don't anticipate, participate. And
ooh,
so, yeah, so
yeah.
like don't go into places, don't spend hours researching a place on their CVB website. Don't just come in and be open
Yes.
to whatever that place is.
Right.
Isn't that what tourism is
Oh,
supposed to be, right? We're supposed to learn.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm definitely going to prescribe that for other people,
Yeah.
because, and we've all done that, right? Like, oh, I want to go to, okay, let's say Catalina Island.
Mhm.
All But when you brought that up, all I thought about was Step Brothers and
Oh
the
yeah.
Catalina wine mixer,
Yeah.
the Catalina wine mixer and the catastrophe. No, no, but like, okay, you can hear great things about this one place, but like, don't wrap yourself around the axle of like trying to curate this very specific experience. Now I know that's difficult because we have influencers too. I don't think people talk a lot about
Yeah.
tourism influencers. One day I'm going to really dig deeper into that, how, our tourism industry relies heavily upon people here who create that content. And I'm not trying to even judge that content or moralize around it.
Mhm.
I do believe you can do it a little bit more ethically, and a little bit with a little bit more class consciousness. But you don't want to. I feel like people visit like influencers, where they come to look for the cobblestone
Yeah.
streets, but they don't interrogate how those ballast stones arrived to Charleston, which,
Right.
spoiler alert, in the holes of slaver ships. So,
Yeah.
it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. Like, just don't visit like an influencer. Visit like a cousin, or,
Yeah.
hey, yeah, I had an unexpected layover in this town, and I just want to go out and hang with the locals. Visit like that. Let it happen
Yeah.
naturally.
Yeah, because really it's like to an extent, and this is what I say too to people, a lot of times if you're going to visit like an influencer, you're just having the same vacation over and over again in different
Yeah.
places. And if that's the case,
Yes.
then do just stick to the very small tourism areas. Um, go
Mhm.
have your shots, go dance, whatever, and then go to the next place. But like, don't go out into other parts of the city and then like demand that other parts of the town create this vacation for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it reminds me of this friend I have, and I won't say his name. But I've never met anyone like this, but he's probably just, he's probably not. I don't want to make anyone feel bad, but he loves chain restaurants. So he loves, when he goes places, he likes to, okay, I know the Cheddar Bay biscuits in Charleston are going to be the same Cheddar Bay biscuits in Camden, New Jersey.
Yeah.
And like, I think a lot of people approach their tourism that way. Like,
Yeah.
I want to go, I want a safe experience, I want to know what I'm going to get,
Yeah.
as opposed to really just being open, to different types of people and flavor profiles. And I always tell people too, like, I know forced perspective is used in a very specific way, like perhaps like with theme parks, but I always tell people, like, try to resist that forced perspective that you're being sold.
Yeah.
And yeah, and try to see what they're not, not pushing you to see and
Yeah.
feel. and arrive at your own conclusions for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That talks about, I don't know why I keep going back to so many class things. Hey, listeners, you get to take a tourism class today. But yeah, that's what we call that the tourist gaze. And we talk
Mm.
about like how long we have worked to really perfect that, to make sure that we have control of the eyes of the tourist and where they look and where they don't. And so, like, the biggest example of that for the listeners at home, if you've ever been to a resort in a place like Jamaica or something like that, uh, I I would guess, because this is primarily how it happens, is you get off the plane and wherever you're at, and then the resort has people there that meet you. They swoop you up into a van, and then when you're inside that van, you have cocktails. There's probably music. There's a video screen. That's when I went there. The video was Cool Runnings.
Oh
So
my
I'm like,
God.
come
Oh my
on. Yeah,
God. A bunch of non-Jamaican
exactly. So they're
actors.
like, here, we got a bunch of white
Okay.
tourists coming. Let's show them Cool Runnings and play Bob Marley.
Oh my.
And
Oh
but
God.
the whole idea of that is to make sure that your eyes are looking inside of that van the whole
Yep.
way
Yep.
from the
Yep.
resort to the airport, so that you're not looking outside of the
Oh.
reality of the
Ooh.
people who live there. Yeah, so
Oh
then,
my goodness.
yeah, that's not an accident. Yeah, that is a very
No.
strategic thing that's done. And so that's what
Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
A lot of these tourism cities are like, I guess that's why I keep going back to theme parks and some
Mhm.
of the things you shared. Is like a lot of it is like a theme park experience where they'll tell you what you should go here at this time, and they're this is when the fireworks are, and again it's just telling you where to look and where to be
Yeah.
at certain times, and so when something is doing that to you, you should actively try to see, well, what if I turn my head this way, what if I
Yeah.
actually stayed on James Island, and maybe with family or wherever,
Mhm.
and then maybe came to downtown maybe one day as
Yeah.
opposed to all my day. It's that. Ooh,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, I'm gonna be on the lookout for that next time I take a nice
Yeah.
vacation. Shuttle.
Be like, what are they trying to get me to
Ooh.
not see right now? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because it's so much
Oosh.
easier
Yep.
to believe. That's what, we talk about. Because that's what every tourist also wants to think. They're like, oh, the staff loved me. And I was like, the staff are paid to love you. Like, they have to
Right.
smile at you. Like, that's part of their jobs. And it's like, no, no,
Yeah.
they were giving me insider tips. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh,
Wow. Wow.
but
Sounds like the inside of an adult club too. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. The ladies love you
Yeah,
guys.
exactly. That's, yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to turn your podcast into something rated R, but yeah,
No.
no.
Okay. So we could talk so
Yes.
long about tourism and Charleston and all of that. Um, there's a few things. One thing, when you talked about, though, your graphic novel, I don't know, just somebody, well, I think it's a good idea. And somebody that maybe you'd be interested in reading is Dr. Razul Moat. He actually did his
Mm.
dissertation. He's in leisure studies, and he did his dissertation several years ago about lynching as leisure. And so he went back and like got looked at the postcards and things like that, and
Ooh.
essentially just kind of outlined how back in the day it was a leisure experience. All of the people that were going to watch were all dressed in their all the white people who are going to watch are dressed in their Sunday finest, and it was like a carnival type situation, and things like that. And so when we think about leisure and tourism and things like that, and like what you brought up of your dad's relationship to where was it, folly
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 Beach. Yeah.
beach, and then when we think about relationships to the outdoors, and when we say, why don't more people of color go outside alone in the woods. And it's like, well, there's a pretty dark history there.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
so anyway, so that just
No, yeah.
brought that to mind, something you might want to look into.
Yeah, I did a quick Google. I just did a quick Google. Definitely gonna dig into that.
Yeah,
Yeah, after this.
yeah, because I mean, he's
Mm,
done so much work since then.
mm-hmm.
Uh, but so let's give. So, like I said, sometimes tourists can get a bad rap, but sometimes it's just because they just frankly don't know any better. And so, do you have any tips for tourists to just kind of be better guests? And it can be
Oh
specifically to
goodness.
Charleston, or could it be just in general?
Be better guess. Ooh, yeah, I would definitely actively, and I've been really I guess optimistic about the future of this city as a
Mm,
tourist destination because I have heard and seen more guests, more visitors ask for, literally, like, I'm explicitly asked, where are the black people?
really?
Like, and I'm never offended by that because I know exactly what they mean. Like, there's a lot of, outside of people who, the service, and the people who service the hotels and, keep our city just moving and grooving,
Mm,
within these industries. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to find, events that reflect the fact that black people live here.
mm.
And not just black people. We have a huge, post Hurricane Maria, a huge Latinx,
Okay.
boom in population here. Lots of folks from Brazil too. Like, so there is texture here. There is culture. So I would encourage people to seek those things out, and they may not be on that city sponsored or that organization sponsored page.
Hmm.
They might be, it might just come to you from reading our newspaper or watching our news a little bit, if people can do that, to
Yeah.
to see a little bit more accurate depiction. But I would definitely seek those things out. I would tell people to for Charleston to also, like, yeah, downtown is not the only thing you would like to see and experience here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and our city is not the most walkable city. I
Hmm.
think that's pretty, established.
Mm,
I think downtown is a little bit more walkable, but it's not the most walkable place. So prepare for that. Prepare to drive,
mm.
because I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it to
Yeah.
drive. Yeah, and I think it's worth it to drive a little bit longer to some of these more rural pockets. And lately my work has just naturally taken me to the space where a lot of the CFCs, the College of Charleston
Mm.
faculty, have asked me to entertain young students either from this
Oh.
area or other areas.
Hmm.
And I'm taking them to Wadmalaw. Wadmalaw is where my dad was born and raised.
Mm.
I'm taking them to just more rural areas, and so
Yeah.
I would encourage people to seek those experiences out as well. They're not, there's not bars and, fancy restaurants in
Yeah.
every corner, but there are amazing small businesses
Mm.
that definitely would love to talk and to teach more about what Charleston has to offer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
I think with that, it's always the two sides to tourists that I like to say with that too is like with the participate aspect of that,
Mm.
because it's like sometimes, again, well-meaning tourists, but it's the ones that get off the beaten path and then they just go to some small place or something and they just sidle up next to somebody and they just determine that that person's going to be their tour guide, and they're like, okay, tell me all about this. And it's like, well, you also don't need to just like make someone, but just go out there, like you say, and experience. Take it a little bit of
Yeah.
effort on your own part to just kind of participate
Yeah.
in it and not say, okay, now I'm out of my comfort
Yeah.
zone. Tell me all about it.
Right. No, exactly. And it's I mean, it's like any other new experience, a new job, a new relocating. You really just have to walk it. You just have
Hmm.
to really immerse yourself in that area. And just one thing I love about Charleston, I sincerely love this, is you literally can talk to strangers
Mm.
more often than I think in any other city. As someone born and raised in the New York metro area, I can attest to this. Like, you can have you can meet someone in a hotel, you can meet someone at a city park. I get questions all the time from tourists,
Mm-hmm.
and it turns into a little mini conversation. And I think that's just stop and have conversations with people,
Yeah.
all kinds of people. Not just when you're lost,
Right.
just ask. And Charleston's a place where you can literally, like, ask someone at the restaurant, hey, what did you have there? I'm thinking about getting this, but what did you have on your plate? And they'll probably just talk. And
Yeah.
I do love that about Charleston. And I mean, that's no matter gender, race, like, people
Mm-hmm.
love to talk and entertain. So
Yeah.
talk to people more, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, like you say, actually talk and actually listen. Don't just walk
Hmm.
around with your canned profile
Yeah,
of like, this is who
exactly.
I am, and I spit it out to you in
Right.
5 seconds. It's like, no, actually, let's
Mm-mm.
start having conversations again, folks.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
I have
Yep.
I want to for a tip for tourists that I want to get your opinion on, because we talk about, again, your experience from an activist point of view, and now kind of city government point of view, everything else, and short-term rentals everywhere have become an issue.
Girl.
And the tourist side of it, yeah,
Ooh.
and again, you can't fault, because it's almost like they've
Mm-mm.
been told different things. And
Yeah.
so when Airbnb and things first came out, it's like they're the better alternative than these corporate
Mm.
hotels, right? But now it's kind of like we've seen what short-term rentals have
Mm.
done to communities and things like that. Um, and so what I tell tourists is the hotel is better. At least we know that people are getting paid for the work that they're doing,
That part.
hopefully. At least stuff like this, and you're not, partying until 4 a.m. next to somebody who has to get up and work at 5 a.m.
Oh my
So,
God.
so can you speak to what's going, what do we
Yeah,
do with
yeah.
these?
You don't know. Okay, again, I'm putting on my former candidate hat,
Yes.
because so I'm so proud of myself, because I was one thing, we didn't have a lot of money, but we were very, very helpful volunteers. And so I had a lot of help with canvassing. And so we mapped out our areas that we would attack in Charleston strategically. We tried to find, quote unquote, my voters, right?
Hmm.
And so this one instance, I can remember a couple days that we mapped out an area where there's a lot of what we thought were college age, renters, or even like permanent residents who kind of stayed after they finished a stint at College of Charleston.
Mm.
So we knew we young people, we were looking for young voters. And it took us to an area, if anyone knows Charleston, it was like Spring Street
Mm.
area. And when I tell you, we're trying to knock doors, it was like a team of 4 of us at one point, and every other door was an Airbnb,
Oh man.
and or a short-term rental. And we were like, man, wait, we had a game plan. Oh, we did this name, and we would knock on the door, and like, no, no one lives here. And then we knock on another door, a family would open the door, and like, no, we're from Ohio, we're just in
Mm.
town. And it was just this one area that was just a proliferation of short-term rentals. And I had not even, I knew it was popular in that area,
Hmm.
had no clue to what scale and degree. And what I can say is, I mean, yeah, it definitely, a- a- as someone who was vying to become a lawmaker,
Hmm.
it was really disheartening to see a lack of balance in that area. um uh, and how that would shape perhaps the outcome of certain races, right?
Yeah.
But also, yeah, it was a very, you saw that Charleston is, you see Charleston becoming a very cost prohibitive area.
Hmm.
And yeah, any now that my eyes are open, when I go to work, or when I on my lunch break or wherever, I'm driving through the city, you just see hordes of people pulling their luggage in this area, and
Uh,
that's all you see. And
yeah.
I just yeah, I just feel like for me, um it short-term rentals, they do disrupt the way that they're out of control in certain areas. They
Mm-hmm.
disrupt the natural ecosystem of an area. um they just make certain experiences less accessible.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention how they drive up property value. So as we were canvassing, what we saw was the stark contrast between these beautiful, well-appointed short-term rentals, and then across the street was this home that this African American family had for 50 years,
Uh,
and it was in disrepair. And
yeah.
you can see, it just was a lot of challenges. And black folk can't, black folk and also working class people are less likely to be able to hold on to their homes because of the skyrocketing property taxes and things like that, and the values just going through the roof. So
Yeah.
I am of the same mind too. I am off the Airbnb unless it's some like a once in a lifetime experience in like a cabin or something where it's a bunch of us.
Yeah.
I am not. I am pro hotels. To your point, you can tip.
Yeah.
You can. People are getting paid equitable, at least more equitably.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah. I don't know if that helped advance this conversation, but
No.
it is a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
that's exactly what I was wondering because it is, yeah. And because it's not like what you say, it's not local anymore. So it's
Mm-mm.
essentially developers coming in and buying up these places. And like you said, that home that you described, there's a probably a strong chance they've already been bought out
Yep.
by
Yep.
developers that are now going to turn it
Mm-hmm.
around. And
Yep.
it's
Yep.
it's in destinations and cities across the
Yeah.
country, across the world, really. But and it is
Mm-hmm.
a lot. It's oftentimes it's the people who work in tourism who need to live a little bit
Yeah.
closer because they have to walk
And
or
that's
something. And now they're
so.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off in my enthusiasm. That is exactly that. The workforce can no longer live in close proximity to where they, and so it creates so many challenges
yeah,
for schools, for kids, for families, for the workforce. All
yeah.
right, I'm sorry, I just got excited.
No, no,
Yeah.
I because actually you brought up a point that I had never thought about is because it is often, kind of these underserved poor areas that get bought up. And when we talk about politics, I didn't even think about the fact of now you've got people trying to go in and govern those areas or run for office and represent those areas. And now they have no residents, they have no constituents in there
Mm,
to help the
no.
people who still are living in there and all. Yeah, it's
Mm-mm.
just
Yeah.
we could tug at
Yeah.
that thread a thousand different ways.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And also, I mean, oh yeah, I don't know. I hope the camera's all right. I'm sorry.
one of them is.
But yeah, but yeah, that and well, I lost my train of thought too. But that's okay. Yeah, let's move on.
Oh, okay.
That's
Well,
okay.
that was good. I just wanted to make sure while I'm out here telling people to quit staying in Airbnbs, I wanted to make sure uh, I wasn't just a one woman crusade against Airbnbs.
No, I think we're all, and look, those fees are ridiculous. If
Yes.
anyone stayed in the Airbnb, you might as well stay at a hotel. I'm not doing the dishes before I leave. Just
Exactly.
it.
I'm not,
I'm
I'm
not.
not paying extra and then
Mm-mm,
doing the dishes and taking out the
mm-mm,
trash and mopping your floors.
mm-mm. No, not at all.
All right. So that brings us to an end. We're going to wrap up right there. Hopefully, we've opened your eyes a bit about tourism in general and specifically in Charleston, what it's like to live in a place where tourism is king. Hopefully, give you some tips to be better versions of yourself as a tourist in Charleston. Mika, is there any place you'd like to tell listeners where they can find more of the work that you do or
Oh, I would just tell people to stay tuned. I used to run Charleston Activist Network, and while that work is on hiatus because it was very political and very incendiary and
Mhm.
not too compatible with my current job. But I will say that please stay tuned. I have some really interesting conversations I want to continue to have about living in cities and building stronger cities, especially cities like Charleston. So I know this sounds like I'm being a little bit over the top, but I want to say that you really have influence inspired me to do so much more here. And I want to say thank you for all your scholarship and leadership in this. And I'm so happy you have a podcast now, because everyone can take advantage of all that good perspective you have.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, then now I'm all flustered now. Uh, but yes, and thank you for giving us your time, giving us your insight into Charleston, and for all the listeners out there. For more deep dives into all things tourism, be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, or you can follow us on Instagram at You're a Tourist. But until then, remember, you can call yourself whatever you want, but you're a tourist and it's okay. The first step to getting better is admitting it. We're done, I think. Okay.
Okay. I hope that was good. I don't know how you edit, but hopefully it's all good.
No, that was fantastic. Yeah.
This was fun. Oh my God. So much I want to talk about, but hopefully we covered the important stuff. But this was, this weekend is the huge tourist weekend, the Cooper River Bridge Run. And